The Java backend part of the app is independent of the front end or the UI. In this case, the backend defines endpoint functions and the UI calls those functions. So we're going to start our explanation of the code by looking at the definition of the endpoint functions. So I've opened up Hello World Endpoints. This is the package, and then we've imported the classes that we need from the spi.config package. SPI basically means endpoint. So here are the imports that we need to use endpoints. Now here at the top of the file it says @API net and its name equals Hello World Endpoints, version equals v1. This is where we're saying, hey, this file contains endpoint functions. There's the description, it's pretty obvious. And then the client IDs specify which clients are allowed to use these endpoint functions. Here we've specified constant.web client ID, but actually for now we don't really care which client uses us. But this one is important, the API Explorer. So we've specified that the API Explorer client ID is allowed to use our endpoint functions. And if we look at constants.java, see here the web client ID, we didn't really set it, but here we did set the API Explorer client ID. We get this from constant.api_explorer_client ID, and we get this from the spi.constant package. So if you want the API Explorer to be able to access your backend functions, you do need to enable the client ID to use the API Explorer. Okay, so back here in Hello World Endpoints, we've defined just a couple different endpoints. They're very, very simple. The first method is say hello, and we've declared it as an @API method or an @API method. By default, every method inside a file that's been declared as an @API is exposed through endpoints. But you can set the name if you want, and the path, and the method. So here the say hello method simply returns a new instance of the hello class object. We'll look at that in just a second. And then the next method, say hello by name, takes an argument name, and we've declared it must be named. The argument must be named name. And we return a new instance of the hello class created with the name string. That's all these methods do. Basically they say hello and they say hello by name. So both of these methods return an instance of hello class. So let's quickly take a look at hello class. And you see this is a really simple class. Doesn't import anything. It's just a POJO, plain old Java object. It has one field message, has a default constructor, and it has a constructor that takes the name and generates the message based on the name and sets the message. And that's all it does. Now the reason we need this class is because endpoint functions can't return string objects. They have to return objects with fields. Otherwise, we could probably just define our endpoint functions to return a string of the message. But since we need a real object, we're using hello class for it. Okay, now I'm going to run my app, and I'm going to run it on the dev server on localhost. So this time, since I've already got the configuration, the run configuration set up, I just go to run as, and then I choose Maven build, and I choose the configuration that I set up earlier, and then I choose OK. Now it's going to run it on localhost. Again, you can go to localhost and see your app, see the home page for your app. But actually, I don't want to do that right now. I want to go straight to the API Explorer. And to get there, you just add a /AH/API/Explorer. It's localhost :80/_AH/API/Explorer. So you see this when you go to the API Explorer. You can click on services to show the services, and then you can click on the available API to drill down to see what functions are available. And we have say hello and we have say hello by name. And if you recall, these are the two functions that were defined in Hello World Endpoints.java. And you can actually execute these functions right here in the API Explorer. So we click say hello, we say execute. And then you scroll down, you'll see the request, which shows the requests that got sent. And you see the response. And you see our response is messages, hello world. Kind of what we expected. Now let's go up and try the next one, say hello by name. Now see here it says name. Remember how we had @named in our API? Well, this is going to show the name here bit confusing because we have @named and name, but this is the named argument right here. So let's enter a name and then we'll execute it. And again, here's the request, but here's the response. Hello, Lauren. It took the name that we supplied. Okay, cool. So now you know how to use the API's Explorer.